We're live.
I'm hearing the music. All right, cool. All right.
We're live.
Are we live? Are we live? Hey, everyone, are we
Hey.
live? All right,
Oh,
cool.
I think we have a super
Are we live?
different lag.
Everyone, are we live? Who is saying?
Oh, I think we have a. Oh, you have YouTube open, Loic.
Is this is this is this really like the first time we do this?
Hello,
All
everyone.
right, I'm back here. I'm back here. Carmen, put me back in. All right. Sorry about that. Please say hello. This is we were like so much focused on our setup that I didn't pay attention. I had YouTube on the back, and so you have the echo. Apologize for this, but really excited about our session today. So I'm not being disrespectful here. I have an iPad. We have a unique setup today. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to go back and I see some people dropping in. Yamit, how are you? Hello. Jose, hello. Kevin, Ronaldo. All right, guys. So the trick is my name is Loic Maestracci, and I'm really excited about this. I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this today, and I have to make sure I look at the camera.
Yes.
I'll explain a bit the setup, but while I'm going to do the intro and, of course, introduce you to Maria, who's on the screen this way, please drop a hello, a sign on the chat, and tell us where you are joining us from, city, country, whatever. If you're wearing your PJs or you're having breakfast or a nice dinner, while you do this, I'm going to explain where we are. But first, I want to say hello to someone I can call my friend and the Acclaimed audio engineer from Miami, Florida.
No, I'm from
Maria,
Bogota, Colombia,
sorry,
but I live in Miami.
from Bogota, Colombia, Bogota, Antioquia,
No,
Colombia. No? All
no,
wrong?
no, it's Bogota, Cundinamarca.
Cundinamarca in Colombia and currently based in Miami, Florida.
Yes.
Maria, welcome back to Music Expo and thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited. How are you?
I'm doing good, Loic. I have my phone here with the YouTube, so I can also be reading the questions and saying hi to people as well. Not that I'm chatting or something, FYI.
You should. And same thing for me. And what's particular, if you've been attending our presentation before, we are actually usually behind our computers, and we're still behind our computers, but we wanted to do something a bit casual this time where it looks like we're all sitting around a couch. So what I'm going to ask everybody is, if you want, pull back your chair, sit on your couch or armchair. So you're sitting with us. You can see that Maria is on her couch. I am on my couch here. You don't see it, but I'm on my couch, which usually is standing behind my desk. I move things around. So up there, it's the screen. Here is the camera. I have the mic that I'm trying to hide, and I hope the audio is good. And yeah, and I'll be looking at questions here. I prepare a couple of questions for Maria, but really this is an Ask Me Anything session. You can ask pretty much everything in the chat box, and when we're open for questions, I'll take a look at it, or Maria will look at it, and we'll call out a couple of questions on the screen and get them answer. So I'm going to do I want to do a proper introduction. Usually when we have Maria's presenting, we go straight into it. But here it's about her, it's about her career, it's about her story and her life, all the way early days from Bogota to Nashville, Tennessee, where she studied, and now where she's professing in Miami, trying to have a very casual conversation, but also unfiltered conversation, and talk about, your life and the business and work and not work. And yeah, so but first we're getting into it. For those who don't know, Maria Elisa Ayerbe is a Colombian audio engineer and producer who has worked for Grammy and Latin Grammy nominated albums. And we're going to talk about the difference between this and being Grammy nominated, because that's a question that I wanted to ask her. With more than 15 years of experience in recording, mixing, and post-production and music production, Maria Elisa has been part of the musical production for artists such as Mary J Blige, New Kids on the Block, Ricky Martin, Marc Anthony, Natti Natasha, Laura Pausini, Juanes, Kronos Quartet, Nashville Symphony, Bogota Philharmonic Orchestra, New World Symphony, and many others. Maria Elisa has been recognized by the Latin Recording Academy with the Leading Ladies and Entertainment Honor in 2019 for her outstanding performance as a professional and socially conscious woman within the arts and entertainment fields, inspiring the next generation of female leaders. In 2016, Maria Elisa created the independent label South Mountain Music, and I hope we're going to get a couple of questions about this, as a platform to develop and produce inspiring music from upcoming and talented Latin America artists. She currently serves as board governor and chair for the producer and engineering wing of the Recording Academy, Florida chapter, and she's an active member of female empowering organizations such as She Is the Music, Women in Music, Sound Girls, some of my favorite organizations, and more. Since 2007, Maria Elisa has worked as university professor teaching several courses related with audio and music in Colombia, Tennessee, and Florida. She has moderated and participated in panels and discussion for LAMC, Grammy U, Music Expo, IMSTA Festa, the Recording Academy, and many others. So quite an impressive, just in 15 years, quite an impressive background. And what I would like to do, Maria, is go back to the early days. You
Okay.
grew up in Colombia,
Yes.
and take us back to your early days in life in Colombia.
Well, yeah, I was born in Colombia and I was born in Bogota. And when I was 16, my family, we moved to Bolivia. And I actually ended up graduating high school in Bolivia. I lived there for about on and off 3 years or so. And then when it was time for me to figure out where I was going to go to university or college, I ended up going to Chile. So I lived in Santiago as well for almost 3 years. And so I went, I'm already like mid-20s. But if we return, my early days, well, I started playing guitar when I was like about 11. Before that, I was already like doing music because I was really good with the recorder, the flute recorder. I was actually really good with it. With like most people are just like do. I was already like good, and there was this recorder choir, right? And we were doing competitions, and that's actually how I started learning how to read music and harmony basics and that stuff. Then I got pretty interested in playing guitar. So I started studying guitar, but I wanted to do like electric guitar. So I actually had a teacher who taught me how to play electric guitar, and I got my first electric guitar when I was about 12 or 13. But I didn't get an amp. I got the amp about 2 years after, because my parents were like, "Whoops." And I was like, how does it work? So I would need to take my guitar to school and then find somebody who actually had an amp to plug it in.
So you would play without the amp?
I would play without the amp. I had no amp. They were like, you have to earn it. Like, prove us that you're for real. And so I kept playing and playing and playing. And I would try to connect it to my like little home speaker system that I had, but it would sound horrible, obviously. And then yeah, finally my parents were like, okay, she's for real, let's give her an amp. So like about 2 years after I got an amp.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's wild. Take them 2 years to get you an amp. Wow.
Yeah. But I actually was pretty serious about it, and I was playing guitar all the time, and I was rocking my guitar. And then I started taking also classical guitar lessons, so I was also doing that. But then what happened was that parallel to all of this, well, you know this pretty well, Loic, I have always loved soccer, football for us. And I was pretty active. I was actually goalie. I was the goalie of my team in school, and I was actually the captain, and we were serious. We were competing in Bogota against other schools, and it was great, and I loved it. But you cannot be a goalie and be a guitar player at the same time. because you're using your hands for both of those things. And eventually what happened was that I broke several little bones here from this wrist, and that pretty much messed up my guitar career forever. Not that I wanted to be a guitar player. I knew that I wanted like to be a musician, and but I wasn't sure how was I going to fit within the industry, because I didn't see myself going to guitar school, or like, yeah, like learning how to be a classical guitar player, or like I didn't want that. And I've never been a songwriter myself, in the sense that I can, yeah, I can write songs, and I can collaborate, and I can come up with ideas, but I it's not my job. I've never been a person who writes songs like for inspiration and whatnot. So I was trying to find my way through it. Um, while I was recovering from from the guitar play, from the thing that I was having on my wrist, I learned how to play the clarinet, because I couldn't play the guitar. The guitar was too, it was too complicated for me to play the guitar while having those things going on. So, but I learned how to play the clarinet. So I did that for a year and a half, 2 years or so. So I was very active, and then it was my mom who actually realized, like, because I've always parallel to all of this, I like to like if my Discman broke, or my cassette player would break, or whatever, or like the remote control from the TV, I would like grab things and figure out how to put them apart, and then fix this and fix cables and repair things. I've always been really good like repairing things. So my mom was like, maybe you should be like, there's a career called audio engineering where you get to like learn about the technical side of things, and also be part of the music. Because back in the day, also, when I grew up, my mom was a television producer in Bogota. So she was very, obviously she would take me to the TV sets, and I would hang out with her. So she was very much involved, and she knew the personnel that was part of the television industry. And then she changed careers, and then she was producing a lot of stuff, including sometimes being executive producer for songs and for music. So she would take me to the recording studio, or sometimes either just to watch as they were producing a song or something, or recording it, or she would take me to the recording studio because she wanted me to be the voiceover for a documentary that she was shooting.
Hmm.
And when I was growing up, I don't anymore. I catch it a little bit, but I was way better at French, because I studied French for like 4 years, so I knew how to speak very basic but good French, and then English, and then Spanish. It'd be like, oh, she'll cover it, and she'll have me doing like voiceovers like for kids or whatever in 3 languages, right? Um, so yeah, I was pretty much already, I knew what was going on with the recording studio. So then she was like, this would work for you. So that's how I ended up in Chile, going to school for audio engineering.
So I have plenty of questions. So
Okay.
let's. Your mom tells you, I think audio engineering might be a thing to pursue for you. What was your reaction?
It made sense.
And you were like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it made sense, because as I said, I didn't know how I was going to fit within the music industry with the talents that I had. And I felt like through audio engineering, because there wasn't such a thing as like music production back then, or like not where I lived. So audio engineering was closer to music production. And then I was pretty good with the technology, and I always had an ease for technology. So it made total sense to me. Like, I'm like, yeah.
And what's incredible is your mom knew a bit that world in a way, and with
Yes, of
TV.
course.
So for her, sorry, I don't want to offend anybody, but it was a normal job, you know.
Of course. Oh yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
the,
Absolutely. So,
the
and
issue,
that's one of the first things that when I get asked, those uncomfortable questions about how do we get women, or why women this or that, and there aren't many women in the as engineers or producers and whatnot. I always tell people it's not that. Of course, there's needs to be change in labels and in the overall in the music industry and whatnot, but the change needs to start from home.
Yeah.
from high school.
Yeah.
I remember in high school, the counselor saying like she's gonna go and study something related to something that we don't understand, but it's like music with stuff like audio engineering, but the engineering is what is it? Okay, whatever.
Well, I mean, kudos to your mom, and this is awesome because I mean we know that you are an accomplished. I mean, 15 years later, here we are. So, uh, going
She
back
takes
to
the credit. Don't worry.
she takes the credit,
She
and
takes full credit.
she
Yes.
owns it. She owns it.
Yeah.
Um, I have a couple of questions. Let's go back a bit to your guitar time and your clarinet time and your recorder time. What type of music did you play?
Well, because so when I was a guitar player, when I the reason why I began, and this is going to reveal my age for people that really want to know how old I am. But I fell in love with the Nirvana Unplugged. It was like that album changed my entire career. Well, not my career, changed my life. I didn't have a
Okay.
career like that. But so I heard it and I felt like I wanted to play everything that I heard, but I didn't know how to play guitar. So my dad had a guitar that he never used and I grabbed it and I tuned it in a way that through my ear because there was internet was not a concept when I was talking. Like back then, this was not a concept. So all we had were these little booklets, remember, that you used to buy with guitar chords, and like it'd be like Nirvana, and then you would find like different songs, but nobody explained to me how to tune the guitar. But I figured out a way to tune the guitar so I could pretty much play all the Nirvana songs with one finger, and I would like come up with the solos by ear, and then I was able to play most of the Nirvana Unplugged without knowing play, right? But without knowing any guitar whatsoever. And then my parents, I remember, like, maybe we should find a guitar player for her. So that's how it started. But I told the guy, like, I'm not gonna, because in Colombia usually, or at least back then, guitar teachers would teach you how to play like boleros and like classical stuff and traditional music, and I didn't like that. I wanted to play like Oasis and Nirvana and Blur and whatever was back then, like Pearl Jam and Led Zeppelin and all of those things. So I found a teacher who would teach me that, and eventually I figured out that I needed to learn the classical part of guitar so I would develop like real skills, real musician skills, because everything else I was doing, it was pretty much amateur. But moving on, I learned how to. I was working on my fingering. I was working on well, fingering for both hands, and to just getting to improve my technique. And that's how I got eventually into classical, like guitar playing. And then because I had this problem in my left wrist, which was made it really hard when to play guitar. When I moved to Bolivia, I joined the band, and they gave me an instrument. They were like, pick an instrument, and I really wanted to play the trombone. Like I was like, yes, because I thought it was the coolest ever. But my wrist hurt so much I couldn't hold the trombone. It was really bad. So I ended up like picking the clarinet because my wrist would end up being in a pretty much comfortable position. It actually became good in the amount of time that I studied it, and I liked it. It was fun.
Uh, it sounds like when you something piques your interest, you go for it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now my interest has been, that was before. Now my interest is fully centered in just audio engineering and producing. So I'm stuck, and I have been stuck for like 15 years.
Maria, why why this pursuit of like jumping from instrument, like, oh, I love trombone, let's go for it. Why, what is this drive? You have a drive to learn. I mean,
Yeah, I've had a drive to learn because I don't see limits maybe, or I'm
okay.
just like, I have a sound in my head and I have an idea and I'm like, well, is it difficult? No, let's try it. Like maybe that makes me just a very mediocre person.
No, no, no,
I'm just joking.
absolutely not. And the sum of all of it can give you appreciation for more.
for sure.
Was there, so Nirvana and Blur and Oasis, guitar centric? What was the inspiration for the clarinet?
None at all. Just comfort for my wrist, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, you were not trying to also play those songs on the clarinet or on the trombone?
Nah, not at all. Well, by then I was pretty much interested in learning how to read music well. So I would just focus on whatever they gave me, because I wanted to become a better music reader. So it was more by then it was more about less for my personal enjoyment and more about getting really good at reading music.
Yeah, and actually, we and you and I we did a panel for a company called Sona Works a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and we talk about um, um, you know the, this aspect of learning the theory, learning the academic learning, not just
Hmm.
learning how to do things, but what's the science behind, what's the theory behind, which is and and this is something I want to talk to you because, um, of course, you pursue an actual academic um, study in audio engineering. You just slap the title and be like, okay, let's play with knobs. Um, I want to take a pause, and I see some comments here, and there's
Hmm.
two that I want to, if we can, address because it's true. Carmen, do you mind putting? Carmen is our wonderful producer, and Carmen, do you mind putting Suri Pulgar? I don't know if that's I pronounced the name correctly, but this is what Suri said. Well, it was normal for you because your mom was your role model, but for millions of girls, that's not remotely the case.
Oh, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And I always, every time I get asked that question, I probably didn't mention it this time, but when it's centered around that topic of inequality and inequity in our music industry and other industries and whatnot, the first thing I said is that in my case, I was very lucky to have the mom that I have. I am very lucky to have the mom that I have, and but she had to fight her way through nevertheless, right? Because she was a television producer back in the 80s in a Latin American country. So there you go. And then she made it easy for me. But as I have grown up in this industry as well, and as I have also mentored, sponsored, or taught girls in different colleges and in institutes and universities where I've taught, I realized, as I said before, the problem comes from the household. The problem comes from the society overall telling young girls that the title of an engineer is something that does not resonate with something that is appropriate for ladies. And that's where it all begins. So yeah, of course I recognize that I was very much lucky, but at the same time I recognize the problem, and I always try to motivate parents or future parents or people, whoever can look at me and be like, don't do not ever put titles in your kids future or prospective careers, because everything is meant for everyone.
Absolutely. And being a goalie, being one of them, you could have been a goalie as well. It's not just reserved for
Absolutely.
for guys.
Absolutely.
Uh, Siri, thank you so much for your comment. And if you have any more comments, or I hope if you're looking for support in this spirit, there's an organization that I mentioned earlier in Maria's bio, like Sound Girls as an example, or Women in Music, and or wherever you live, there might be like a group advising on how to break through.
Absolutely.
So try to join them, or hang with us because we try to be as supportive as possible. Um, there's another comment here. Yamit, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Yamit, is there any chance for me to slip some technical questions?
Of course.
Yes. So prepare your technical questions.
Yes.
Yamit. All right. Maurizio Mancini, Wave Music Latino America. All right. Great to have you. I will let you ask, read the question loud, because you definitely have a better accent than me.
But and he wants me to answer in Spanish. So I'll read the question in Spanish and then I'll translate it to English and then I'll answer in Spanish and then I'll go back to English. Does that sound good?
I think it sounds perfect to me. And if anyone
Perfect.
wants the translation in French, I'm happy to do it.
Perfect. Merci beaucoup. So he's giving me a compliment. He's saying Maria Hermosa, which is Maria, beautiful, but thank you very much. And he's calling me maestra, which is master, teacher, whatever. And his question: ¿Cuál tú crees que es el futuro de la producción musical en cuanto a instrumentos virtuales versus instrumentos reales? Puedes responder en español. So the question is, what do you think is the future in music production for virtual instrument versus like real instruments? Now I'm gonna answer in Spanish. So, bueno, yo creo que tanto los instrumentos virtuales como los instrumentos reales pueden convivir juntos y van a seguir conviviendo juntos en el futuro en la música, en la industria de la música, porque los instrumentos virtuales, por más de que se hayan vuelto increíbles en todo lo que tiene que ver con el sonido, los acentos, las dinámicas y como el detalle tan específico que tienen, nunca van a poder reemplazar al humano, al instrumentista que está reaccionando a la música, que está interpretando. Y al mismo tiempo, por otro lado, hay muchas cosas de los instrumentos reales que por estar de alguna manera tan limitados a su construcción, a su sonido, a lo que pueden dar, solamente puedo desafinar una guitarra hasta cierto punto y va a empezar a sonar horrible, o no puedo transportar un piano porque pues lo rompería por completo. Entonces, ahí es donde los instrumentos virtuales pasan a ser muy útiles porque no hay límites, entonces yo puedo hacer sonidos completamente irreales y replicarlos en el mundo virtual. Entonces yo lo que veo desde hace mucho tiempo es que los instrumentos reales conviven con los instrumentos virtuales y los instrumentos virtuales nunca van a reemplazar un buen músico, por eso sí seguimos teniendo grandes intérpretes y eso nunca va a cambiar. Now in English. So the question was like, what is the future? How do I see the future in music regarding virtual instruments versus real instruments? And my answer is there is actually no competition between them. They have been coexisting together for a very long time, and they will continue coexisting together because virtual instruments will never replace a performer. They will a guitar. You can only the way somebody reacts to music and you cannot fake taste. Taste is something that is unique to every performer, and also the body mechanics and everything. How somebody can plug really hard, or a drummer can smack a drum really hard, or at the same time he can be very smooth, or she. That is something that is very difficult to replicate with virtual instruments because every instrument is different, and every performer has a way of interacting with that instrument in a totally different way. So that is something that you will never be able to replicate, not even with AI, and to my belief. And then also on the other hand, with real instruments, you're constrained. There's, as I was giving the example in Spanish, there's only so much that you can untune or like down tune your guitar until it's going to fall apart. Or there's no way to transport your piano because you cannot change everything on your piano. But you can do that with virtual instruments to the point where you can actually create totally new sounds that you would never expect because it's endless, it's limitless. So I'd say, and from my point of view, those have been coexisting together and they will continue coexisting together.
Thank you for providing the answer in English and Spanish. And Mauricio, muchas gracias por tu pregunta. Let's take another questions from Reynaldo Gomez. Carmen, do you mind putting on the screen? Yeah. So, have you been able to work with the type of music that you liked back in the 90s? So, Ronaldo got the hints of the period we were talking
Yeah,
about
well,
earlier.
actually, yes. I thought maybe no, but actually, yes. So when I was growing up, obviously in Colombia and Latin America during the 90s, not only were like Anglo, what we call Anglo music, right? Um, like bands that came from either the US or England. They were pretty popular back then, but also throughout Latin America, we had rock en español, which is rock in Spanish, which is it's a genre on its own. It's not just doing like a rock and roll four band piece band and performing songs. It's like this genre actually grew into having its own style and its own sound. And actually, yes, I've produced bands that are trying to relive or reproduce that sound from the 90s and in that style of rock in español, and it's really cool because we have the tools from nowadays, but we're adapting them into what was used back in the past, and it's been a pretty cool experience, to be honest. Because rock en español was the genre where so many of us grew up with, and it's something that reggaeton killed, unfortunately, because the radio stopped supporting rock en español, and musicians couldn't afford to make a living and keep doing that. So that is a genre that it's almost dead, but the fact that you can keep working on it and people enjoy it is also very pleasant.
Yeah. Um, I see a couple of questions, and the technical questions went through, but I want to kind of wrap up a bit your education, so we can talk about the work in studio. Uh, so you study audio engineering. You started studying audio engineering, sorry, in Chile, in Santiago,
Yes.
for 3 years.
Yeah, so I did 3 years, and what happened was that it was a full audio engineer career. It was a 5 year career,
Okay.
and halfway through the program, I realized that I needed to go back to music, because it was I had some music classes and whatnot, but it was very technical, and it was only gonna get much more technical. And I realized that I wasn't going for that path. And by talking about technical, I was going into electroacoustics. I was going into like I did all the possible physics, all the possible calculus, and I was getting into circuits and electronics, and it was getting really really engineering and acoustics, a lot of like heavy duty acoustic studying and whatnot. And I realized that although I like that, I was missing out because I was doing that. I was missing out on music. So I figured I started looking around, and then I realized that a program that existed before, but in a different way in Colombia, had now been reformatted, and basically it was a program at this university where it's a music degree, but instead of picking an instrument or being a performer or composer or a conductor, you could actually choose audio engineering as your major. Uh, and it is a music degree as any music degree. You have to really work your butt off and like study and be really good at everything. So I switched careers, and I went back to Colombia, and I don't have I don't have an audio engineering degree. I have a music degree.
You have a music degree.
I have a music
From Colombia.
Yes, I have a music degree from Universidad Javeriana, which is a university in Bogota.
Okay.
I have a music degree, and my major is in audio engineering. So then after I was working professionally. Once I graduated, I was working professionally in Colombia, doing a lot of things, and that's when I decided to further my studies. And the only reason why I decided to keep studying, it was not because I really wanted more titles, because that was certainly not my choice, and I didn't want to get more loans and get into more debt. But I really wanted to have access to a different industry, to different things that were not possible back then when I was in Colombia. Things have changed a lot since I left, to be honest, a lot. But when I was there, I had no choice but to leave because I was also not getting the professional training that I wanted because there were no studios hiring people at all. There were only three studios, and those studios were booked with professionals. So there was no opportunities for anyone else. And I was doing television and I was doing films, post production, and I was having fun. But
Yeah.
I knew that my focus was actually with music. So I applied for a university in Tennessee to get my master's degree in recording, and that's when I moved to the U.S. and did my master's in recording.
So you did a master in audio recording, and where did you do it?
It's a program in it's the university is Middle Tennessee State University,
Yeah. Which
45 minutes, 30 minutes from Nashville.
and how is the audio engineering program, or like how many students? Was it a big? Was it small? Coming from
Oh
the
no, our master's degree it was less than 10 people
wow.
per year. Yeah, because it's very focused, very specific. Like that's the only thing you do, but it's a great program. They have the Middle Tennessee has a great program. Well, it has an entire school called the Recording Industry School, and it's super centered. And the studios that they had were amazing, and everything was on top. It's everything that that I was expecting to get, and much more for sure.
So how you're now in Nashville, which has an incredible rich music culture on its own. You know, you like you know about the American music, but boom, you're in Nashville. There's like even this world.
Yeah,
We're talking about bluegrass, Americana, country. How much of that has influenced you? Like
a
being,
lot.
yeah. Tell us. Like,
Yeah, because parallel to being a student, I was also I was working for the university because I got a scholarship, and I got a tuitionship, so I had to work as a graduate teacher assistant, but I was also assisting at the studios, and I was getting that university actually opens up for external bookings, and so whenever there was a client that was coming in, I would offer to do that, but also through internship I managed myself to find like I chose very well the classes that I wanted to take, and I found myself that I could take several semesters doing internship. So I was actually working in Nashville, and I found a studio that wanted to hire me, but the studio only wanted to hire me as an intern. Although it was an internship, I was the engineering chief at the studio, the chief engineer. I'm sorry. So I would use it for credits at school. I couldn't get paid because it was illegal for them to pay me because I am I'm Colombian. But I instead of working as just an intern learning the craft, I didn't have to learn the craft because I already knew the craft very well. I was actually running all of the sessions. So I did work in Nashville, and as you were saying, what I learned is that in Nashville, people getting to the sessions when you say 9 a.m., it means that you're getting at the studio at 8:30. It means that you know your parts very well. It means that there is always the producer who's the most respected person in the room, and everyone will look up to the producer, and the producer is the one leading the entire thing and coordinating everyone. And if you really want to be part of the industry, you have to be on time. You got to learn your chops. You have to be extremely professional. You have to be really conscious about others and yourself, and be respectful. And that is something that is amazing from the Nashville culture, and I carry that with me
yeah.
wherever
And
I go.
and I know, Yamit, I'm seeing your questions, and we may talk about compression, but you know, if we don't have a chance to touch base, there's so many great tutorials that Maria has online. But I think I see questions about the industry and how to connect with artists, and I think this is the stuff that we don't necessarily talk enough about. And that's ideally, I'd love to, if everybody's permission, just drop me a one, ready to push more on this, because I have a couple of questions about Maria time in the studio, working with artists, with producers, and then really piggyback to what you were saying. Um, there is actually, before we go into this, uh, Max, uh, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, has, I think, a related question. If we can put it. Hello, Maria. How do you start a new relationship with a big artist or producer? And how do you develop it to a strong job connection? So, yeah, it's
That,
such
yeah,
a perfect follow up question to what you were saying.
yeah, absolutely. How do you start a relationship with a big artist? You know, it can happen in so many different ways. It can happen because someone actually from their team reaches out to you. Somebody knows about your work, and they find out about you, and then they reach out to you. Or sometimes the artist just really likes you, or sometimes the artist will hear something that you've done and they feel a connection, and then they reach out. Or sometimes you just pop up at the same party, or sometimes you meet their cousin. But my point being is that the one of the things that I always tell starting up producers, engineers, musicians, performers, and whatnot, don't be afraid to put up your work online. Make yourselves available, make yourselves noticeable. And by work, I'm not talking about posting Instagram stories right next to a console. That is not your work. I mean, an IG picture of you sitting at a chair at a studio does not really reveal how good you are. Music will only reveal how good you are at what you do. So very early on, I realized this, fortunately, also because I took a diploma in music business. And I realized that so that I did that between my music when when I graduated from my music program in Colombia. I realized that I was not getting any jobs, and I identified I was failing at my marketing and my business strategy and whatnot. And I realized, luckily, that I was my own business, and I needed to figure out how to market myself, and I need to figure out how to make a name on my own. And then I was clueless. So I actually did a 3 month, 4 month diploma on music business. And one of the very first things that I was taught is that if you want to market yourself as a product, you got to make yourself available. And you're by yourself, meaning your music. Um, so that goes back to like, if you make your music available, someone, being the artist, being somebody from their team, being the producer, someone, being someone from the label, from ASCAP, from BMI, I mean, the connections can be so broad, can find you and connect with what you do. And then they may think, oh, this person would be perfect for this artist, or will be perfect for our next project. So that's one way of doing things. And the other thing is actually like networking. Obviously, because of the pandemic, it's becoming hard. But eventually, as we get the vaccines and we take care of ourselves and whatnot, events, personal and public events will come back. And belonging to different associations and industry and industry, um, yeah, and going to industry events and whatnot, like the Recording Academy has always events throughout the year, and ASCAP or BMI, they hold parties, or just showing up at someone's concert. You never know where you meet people, but you're also your own ambassador for your own brand. So that's why making personal connections is also really important. Then you have to have something to back it up, right? So you make sure you have yourself, you carry your own card, and you give it, and you have your socials, and you have your website, and that links to your music, and then it's your music that's the one who's going to cut the deal.
It's a, would you say this is a relationship business or
A
industry?
100%.
Yeah.
It's who you know, but and in this question will differ a little bit of where you're coming from, because like in Latin America, it's still pretty much who you know, period. But I'd say here in the US, it's who you know, and how your talent and your professionalism and the quality of the work that you do supports who you know. You can know anyone in the business, but if that doesn't link up to your talent and professionalism, and quality doesn't link up to the people that you know, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. There's some great questions coming up. So I want to continue on this, and then we're going to go back to formal academia, because there's been question about it, and I know you have
Yeah.
also an opinion about it. But can we, Carmen, do you mind pulling the M question about the pandemic? Yeah. So, hi, Maria. The pandemic has been closing many doors to network with new people by canceling events and putting us in isolation. How can we continue to network and create these connections? Well, first, you came to the right place, because doing what you're doing right now, it's a way to do it. And if you don't know, but I hope you can join our Discord after that, where we can have a casual chat and be all on camera. But that's my recommendation. But Maria, what would be yours?
Well, yeah. Basically, you pull it out of my mouth, and yes, it's a way to joining Music Expo, going to the events. I mean, virtuality in this case has replaced it, like the virtual instruments versus performers. In this case, for now, virtuality has replaced a lot of the physical events, because we used to hang out in real life Music Expo,
Yeah.
for real. So that was fun. We used to have Music Expo once a year, and we would get to meet, and we would get to hang out and assist to all of these different workshops and talks and everything. But now all of this is happening virtually. But also, the fact that obviously social media plays a big role in this,
Mm-hmm.
because through social media you can connect, you can follow people, you can get followed by other people. Also, I know we have a Discord here, and Music Expo has an ongoing Discord chat going on. So that is a cool community that gets together and talks about different stuff. And there are many Discords from
Yeah.
many, like Josh Goodwin has a Discord, and like
Yeah. Once you
um,
join one, join all of them. You know.
join all of them. and
Yeah.
and and but in the end, just don't be afraid to show your music on Instagram, show your music on Twitter, show your music through social media, because that is going to help you make a virtual connections with people that eventually you'll get to meet and you'll get to interact.
Ziem, that was a great question, and thank you for asking it. Um, Sorry, going back to oh, there's some really good stuff. All right. Um, Sorry, I'm going back to uh, Angel Reese, which is about formal. Yeah, let's get this one. Angel, thank you so much for the question. So, dear Maria, many composers, producers have not had any formal or academic training. Do you think they have any opportunity on today's market without a diploma or certificate? And
Oh,
let's pose that, because I think, can we pull also the other questions from Max Human, because it's in the same vibe, and maybe you can address both at the same time. Uh, Max is saying, Maria, my dream is becoming producers. Max Martin is my biggest reference, and we all know that he did it from his bedroom. But I'm clueless when it comes to recording. Should I enroll and learn recording to keep focusing in production and songwriting? So the topic we covered for Sona Works a couple of weeks ago was basically we can learn this craft online using
right.
YouTube, but also you've done a formal education, you know, and you have a master degree. So what's your POV? What's your recommendation?
No, I don't. Going back to the
Academics, yeah, nay. I love it. Great job, Carmen.
basically, and I'd say whatever works for you. And do they have a future? Actually, they do. Right now, most of the top producers have never set foot to any like educational institution and whatnot. But that doesn't mean that they haven't put up the work, and that's going back to what that panel that you and I did on is it academics, is it worthy or not? It is worth it when you don't have a source where to get that real and good and validated information from. So if you're just going to stay at home and you're just going to watch YouTube, how do you know that the content that you're watching from YouTube is actually going to train you? There are certain, and we recommend you go back to that and look that panel, because it was pretty extensive, right, on that topic. But basically, it's really difficult to curate what's good information or not, and what's going to be useful or not. And just because you're getting that information, it doesn't mean that you're actually putting it to use. As opposed to where you go to school, I mean, you're going to be fed with the information and you're going to be asked to provide that information back to the professor, and you're going to get graded for it. So it depends on your personality. And I've known geniuses in music and music production and songwriting who have just grown up on their own. But it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of research and getting to know people and maybe mentoring and having the luck and the access to meet a really good mentor or a group of mentors that can really train you into the nuances of the music industry. In my case, growing up in Colombia, where especially at the time, because it has changed now, but back then I had only seen an SSL once in my life, and I was not able to use it. So how was I going to really be really good at gain staging, at understanding what an actual voltage circuit, meaning a fader, does, right? A potentiometer, if I I didn't have the access to an SSL. That's why I went to Nashville, where I was fed of SSLs. So it comes back to whether you think you have the access, whether you think that you will be able to get the best education, whether it's formal academic training or informal, and whether you'll be able to make the best out of what you're getting.
And I think it's like everything else. Don't take everything for face value. There's a lot of misinformation. It's
A
not
lot.
just music. So
Mhm.
that's where the academic, as you said, can help you really kind of. You need to understand uh, why someone is making a particular recommendation. What's the mechanic? What's the theory behind it? So
Absolutely. And also one thing, because I was reading Max Human's questions on the side while you were
yeah,
talking, uh, dialing into whether he's more of a songwriting producer, but he wants to know if he needs to learn how to do recording. I mean, recording is one of the tools, the most important
yeah.
tools when you're producing. And nowadays, more than ever, because of the home recording of everything that our relationship with technology, producers need to have a really good recording technique to get places, because sometimes productions, or at least when you're starting out, you can't really afford a good engineer. So you need to be really good at recording, because your productions will only be as good as your recordings, as the quality of your recordings. And that's something that hasn't changed and will never change. So if you don't think that you can get really good at recording by yourself, join a music program, a recording program.
Yeah. Um, all right, so let's put this in practice. I have one or two questions I absolutely want to ask you, Maria. It's
Yes.
of course your time in the studio with some of the artists that you work with. But before we go
Hmm.
there, let's practice on Yamit's question, because Yamit is clearly asking a very specific question.
Okay.
So, Carmen, if you can pull the first question. Um, yes. So, Maria, thanks for the opportunity. Here's first question. What is your approach to compression with vocals? Do you use multiple compressors through the chain? Do you automate the parameters?
Yes, yes, yes. So yes, I my approach to compression. I mean, everyone has a different approach to compression. I am more in the style of using multiple compressors and doing slight compression with different attack and different releases as I advance further in my chain, so that it sounds as natural as possible. But I do that with a little bit of a trick. So instead of having, for example, if I have a vocal, first of all, if I am recording the vocals, because this is not specific to recording and mixing, but if I'm recording a vocal, I will use a compressor, but only because I know that I can trust myself using a compressor. And I only when I know that I'll be able to dial in the threshold all the time, so my hand is reacting to what the performer is doing, so that I am using the compressor, so that the voice is getting nice and packed, and it's getting recorded like very very smoothly. But at the same time, if the singer changes or blasts or whatever, I can quickly readjust the threshold, so I'm not overdoing the compression. And that is something that usually a lot of people have issues with. So if you do not trust yourself using a compressor yet, or you don't understand how to do compression, don't record with compression. Just make sure you don't clip, and that's you're good. So then when it comes down to mixing, something that I figured works really well is doing a little bit of gain writing, meaning automating the gain on the actual clips before compressing. Not that you're going to make everything look like a block, because that would be completely unnatural. But if you do really smooth writes, what you're doing is that you're helping the compressor do its job, and you're not relying so much on that threshold. Because if there is a signal that is super hot and there is another signal that is really low, you're going to need a lot of range on that threshold, so that the low signal can pass through the threshold, but also the high signal is not going to get squashed by that compressor. So if you basically you adjust that gain before you enter the compressor, that's going to be a much more smoother process for that compressor. Now, I usually try to do first like slow attack and fast release, so it's taming the peaks, but it's not squashing it. So while the first compressor is just taming the peaks, then the next compressor, I'm going to have a much faster attack. So the faster attack is actually one just handle the peaks, and then the next one is actually getting that much more control and packed signal, and then just sort of keep packaging it. So by doing multiple stages of compression, you can have a lot more detail, and that in a way simplifies the next process, which will be automating your volume. But I'll only do fader writes in those parts where I really want the vocal to stand out, or like the word needs to cut clear. And further along that, I do parallel compression on that vocal. So that the parallel compressor is a much more squashed version of that compressor. Maybe the tone is not very nice, but because it's more compressed and it's a lot more packed, when you blend the parallel compression with your natural sounding vocal, you're going to get a much more clear, in your face type of vocal. And a lot of people do that when I do that, so I'd say it works. But that is my way of doing it. I know a lot of people that do it other ways. So
yeah, Yamit was asking you go to. So
yeah,
Yamit, drop us a one if that was a helpful insight.
yes.
So Maria, going back to we're done with studying and you moved to Miami.
Yeah, well, I forgot to mention through all of this, because you
Yeah.
never asked me. But I started working while I was still in university.
Okay.
I began working halfway through my music undergraduate program.
Yeah.
I was producing bands, I was recording stuff, I was getting paid. So I'd say that is actually working. When you're getting paid, you're getting work, and people were paying me, so I'd say that was work.
Yeah.
And then I actually, before graduating, I was already doing post-production for television series, and in Colombia, and they were aired all over Latin America.
Yeah.
And some films and stuff, and I kept doing that afterwards. Once I graduated, I also figured out that while I was a student, I was good at teaching and talking. I'm just good at talking and just repeating stuff. So that's basically what they call being a teacher. I'm joking. But so I was teaching when I was still a student, and then that was one of the first jobs that I got once I graduated. I found a job part time as a professor in audio engineering and music. So I was doing that. I was producing bands, and I was working on post production jobs. Eventually, I was sound supervisor for a reality show in Colombia. So I was doing all sorts of things, but also I got into recording classical music. So I learned how to record classical music, and I learned how to record orchestras. And that was my first real music credit, was recording Bogota's Philharmonic Orchestra. So then I kept doing that for a while. And it was about 3 years after I graduated, after I stopped going to my undergraduate program, when I decided to go to Nashville. But by then I already had a sort of steady set of customers that would reach out to me. I was already mixing professionally. I was putting out music and stuff. So like producing for other artists, or like well, producers were reaching out to me and my music was being played on the radio. So when I moved to Nashville, those customers followed me.
Mm.
So I would be in Nashville in Tennessee, but I'd be mixing for Colombia, for different parts of Latin America, so that I kept working professionally as I was doing that, and
And
that just kept going.
so, thank you for bringing this up. Yeah, because it's not like you, as you said, you were
No,
already.
I did not just study. No, I've always overworked myself pretty much to
And,
get where I am.
and I assume this really helped you like progress while you were studying and working on study because those two can really complement each other's.
Oh, absolutely. And every time somebody tells me like, "Oh, so you learned you went to Nashville and that's on." No. It's
Yeah.
not that I just went there and magically things happened. I was whatever I was getting better in my academic training, I was actually going and implementing it with my real paid customers. So what started happening was that I started getting better gigs and better jobs because I was getting better. I was getting trained, so everything was informing each other. And then at the same time, I would use the stuff that I was getting paid for, and I would use it for school and just to bring, yeah. And I brought reggaeton back then when nobody even heard about reggaeton in Nashville.
um, so we're almost at time, and if you're enjoying this conversation, please drop a five. I don't want to take everybody's. It's a commitment to stick with us for now. And as Maria said, we'll be in the room somewhere in Miami, but I hope you're enjoying this, and drop a five if you're enjoying this. Uh, there's a question I wanted to ask you. You had experience in the studio with a lot of people, famous, not famous. You work remotely. You work on orchestras. Uh, any stories, anecdotes you want to share, experience that were maybe the first time, or things that you learn, or any, working with some. I mean, you work with some big names as well. Any things. And I'm not looking for the gossip here. I'm looking for
Yeah.
a moment, a defining moment in your career. Something that were like, wow, that was amazing to work with this artist. Or this recording was incredible. To work on this project. Yeah, tell us
Hmm.
anything that you know or
Sure. I mean,
something that
there.
moved you. Like
Yeah.
music project that you worked on, and you had an incredible experience.
I think I've had many, and I try to enjoy myself very much while I'm working at the studio. Obviously, there are things you just need to do for, like, as a paid gig, but I try to
Yeah.
make experiences out of everything. Um, I have many. Like, for example, that time where I worked professionally, where I got my first credit recording the Bogota's Philharmonic Orchestra.
Yeah.
The rush of getting a 90-piece orchestra mic'd up, and then that moment where you lift up the faders and everything just sounds like an album. You're like, what? It's just amazing. And obviously, that in order to do that accurately, it requires a lot of training. So a lot of studying microphones and techniques, and sh- and polar patterns and gain staging, and there's a lot. And eventually, when you see all of that applied to a 90-piece orchestra where you have 100 something mics hanging from all over the room, and you've set up all of those mics, then you're like, hell yeah, right? Because it's like, it's a beast. I love recording orchestras because it's the ultimate beast. It's like,
Uh,
it's a world on its own.
Maria, you saw me struggling an hour and 10 minutes ago with one mic. How do you handle 100?
That's the it's like when people go, when the typical question when people go to a studio and they look at a console and say, how do you handle all of those knobs? And you're like, no, you just get really good at one strip, and then you just repeat. It's the same process with 100 and something microphones. You just have to be really good at at placing each individual mic, knowing how that mic is going to interact with either an individual instrument or a group of instruments, and how that individual mic or group mic is going to interact with the other microphones and so forth. So your microphone techniques and your recording abilities have to be game, like 100% game. So when that finally happens, you're like,
And my assumption is this experience actually really helped you to record bands,
oh
like
yeah,
setups.
yeah, and like it all started because I became like the mini beast I'd always say is recording good drums, and I became obsessed in recording really really good drums when I was in when I was in school, and I had really good friends who were really good drummers, including my friend who became a platinum producer, who was the one of the producers for Despacito and many other. He was my classmate, and he's a really great drummer. And I would ask him to record for all of the tracks that I was producing or engineering, and I would really take the time to, with 15 mics or 12 mics or whatever I was using on my drum kit, get a really really good tone. And then from that it evolved to like doing small orchestras, small ensembles, and then medium ensembles, and then choir, and then so forth. But I was always trying to go big 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 big.
So we're unfortunately at time. This was, I mean, I learned a lot, and I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation. I'm going to ask you the last question. Is really what will today's Maria Elisa Ayerbe say to a younger Maria Elisa Ayerbe?
I've thought about that, and I would say eat better, eat healthier.
Eat healthier.
Yes, because as an engineer and in the music industry and in the studio, you tend to overlook your eating. How do you say that? Your eating overall. Yeah. So
Yeah, not
your
necessarily
habits. That
not
was the word
necessarily
that I was
healthy. It's the slice of pizza, it's the
or
snacks, the chips.
yeah, and then it's just junk food all the time. And the thing is that you don't later realize that it's not about just getting fed. It's about not fulfilling yourself, but it's about just like getting the right nutrients for your body. And then also then you realize that that's going to make you healthy in the long run. You need your mental abilities to be on top. You need your body to be healthy for you to be proficient, for you to stay in the game for a long time. I've met a lot of engineers who I luckily realized that halfway through, uh, like several. Actually, I realized it because I got hypoglycemia, and then I was forced to eat better. Period.
Mhm.
My doctor was like, you have a family diabetes, and you're already hypoglycemic. So there is it's just one train stop of becoming diabetic.
Yeah.
Um, and then I realized that a lot of older engineers were out of the industry because they had terrible diabetes. They have lost parts of their body, or they have done drugs and alcohol so much, and then their hearing gets affected, and then so many things get affected because you're not eating properly. So I was lucky to take that and then just get better on my eating habits, and now it's actually worked for me.
And being an audio engineer, it's a very sedentary profession. You're sitting in front of the computer, in front of the console. So I would say having like a good nutritious habit and maybe exercising when you can, getting some fresh air, it's
Exactly.
it's very important. So what is and what is your routine today in terms of eating? Do you it's what is your snack to go snack? What do you drink? Uh,
I'm eating like I have water all day with me. Water, water, water. I
yeah,
keep hydrating myself a lot. I always get my greens. And it's also about understanding your body. Like there's
yeah.
people who do fasting, and that works really well for them. And when you do fasting, just make sure that that one or two meals that you're getting a day are well balanced meals, and not just like a mega combo at McDonald's or whatever. But also I am the type of person who I snack a lot, and I try to eat small portions, but I'll always eat balance. I don't overdo my carbs. I do a lot of vegetables. I try to stay very healthy. I don't do sugar mostly. I don't do wheat a lot because that doesn't work very well. So I try to keep my balance in my eating and try to get the most nutrition out of that. And that means that I don't get extra tired when I don't have a huge lunch. I have exactly the right amount of lunch so I can keep working without feeling like I'm about to pass out. And then just save, like, if you want to, I mean, I'm not the one who say don't drink because I love my wine, but save the wine for the moment that where you can handle your wine. And a lot of people like to smoke and they like to do other stuff, but just know that if you're a smoker, whatever it is that you choose to smoke, either that's going to alter the way you listen, or that's going to, like, if you smoke cigarettes, that's just going to reduce healthy years of your working ability. So because we have a very sedentary lifestyle, we got to give up certain like negative things that we do in order to continue being sedentary, but also try to get exercise and get
And,
your
and
daily.
without giving too much secret, but I believe you have a home bike.
I do. It's right here in my studio.
So here you have it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I have an elliptical. Yeah.
well, so on this, I think this was a great advice, and unfortunately, a lot of people learn it either the hard way because they have a condition, or they learn it late. So the advice to everybody, if you want to have a healthy career in audio engineering, is try to eat better from now on.
Yeah.
I saw a great comment about yes, from Schatz, how health is always taken for granted because we work so hard. That's a great advice. And on this, I want to, uh, Maria, thank you for the time today. Really,
Of
really
course.
appreciate. We have so much we can talk about, but I
Yes.
think we cover a lot. Hopefully, we cover things that were helpful for you. Please join me in thanking Maria for being with us tonight. If you have a chance, join us on the Discord. We'll just take a 2 minutes break to transition, but I'll be jumping and have cats. Ronaldo
Yes.
said have cats. Absolutely. It's a great source of entertainment. You have a picture.
Yeah, this is my cat.
Is this really your cat?
Yes, that's my cat. He was not wearing the hat, but this is my cat. How
And you've
gorgeous.
photoshopped the cat. And if you've seen a music expo lately with Maria and myself or other people, pets are welcome after the
Always.
session. After the session for the happy hour. So on this, thank you so much, Maria. And I see a lot of thank you. I see hearts. Great. So I hope you enjoy.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
And
Thank you so much.
next week we'll be back with no stupid audio questions with our friends from Nashville, uh, um, Piper Payne and Dan Basigulupi. And I think they have a guest. I don't have the name yet, but watch out for an email. They will have a guest, probably someone from a manufacturer. I think they want to talk about gear
Ooh.
manufacturing. So they were conversation. I don't want to give away the name. I'm supposed to give the name, but we will announce that over the weekend. And on this, thank you so much for Maria for joining us. Always
Of course.
phenomenal
Thank
to
you for
have you.
having me. And thank you to everyone. I was reading your comments and everything. And thank you so much for engaging with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking the questions, and we try to get to as many as possible. And we'll take a quick break, and then jump, to the Discord. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.